Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to a special video presentation on autism. Today's topic is self-care, parents, and caregivers. First of all, I would like to apologize for the late start due to technical difficulties. My name is Dipchand Ramcharitar, and I'm the Outreach and Development Coordinator at Voice of Men 360. Just some brief information about our organization. Voice of Men 360 is a non-profit organization founded in 2020 and is based in London, Ontario, Canada. Voice of Men 360 was born out of seeing a tremendous need and stepping up to provide services to help support and overcome men and boys' life challenges. We are part of International Men's Day. International Men's Day have been serving for over 21 years and 90 countries around the world, joined together in doing various activities regularly. International Men's Day follows 6 pillars, which is the overall well-being of boys and men. We follow in the same footsteps. Before I introduce our guest, I would like to run through our disclaimer. We would like to remind you that Voice of Men 360's mission is always delivered in good faith towards peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's episode are those of our speakers and do not necessarily represent Voice of Men 360. Our organization engages in discussion forums to offer inspiration and create awareness of the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have any questions or concerns about today's episode or any Voice of Men 360 content, please email us at info@voiceofmen360.org. Regarding today's episode on autism, you may ask, well, why autism? Why are we hosting the show? Well, the reason is mostly men and boys are affected by autism, and as a men's organization, we believe it is our responsibility, rather, to create awareness about that and how we can support and help them. So just a brief introduction to what autism is. Autism is a complex neurological condition that impacts a person's ability to communicate and interact with others. It can also cause a range of behaviors, interests, and challenges. It affects people in different ways and to varying degrees, and there is no one-size-fits-all explanation or treatment. However, with early intervention and support, many people with autism can thrive and reach their full potential. So we have a number of guests that we would be introducing and discussing with them their role in this important subject. So first of all, please introduce yourselves and share why it's important to share your story. So we can start with Robert.
Hello. My name is Robert. I have one daughter with autism, and I believe a forum like this is really good. And basically, I felt strongly to share my story because it can offer hope and inspiration to other families who are struggling. In those early days, it is really tough.
Okay, very good. Who do we have next? Ms. Campbell. Sorry, I'm just trying to get your name off the screen here.
Good night, everyone. My name is Ms. Campbell, and I am also a parent of a child with autism, a young boy. I also am the creative director of a business called TLC Hub, which is Thriving Learning Centers, and I have a support system and a hub that supports parents of children with autism.
Okay, very good. And next we have Miss Natasha.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, everyone. Miss Natasha here of Natasha Connects. I am an author, educator, and speaker, and disability advocate, and I also am authentically autistic, among other wonderful things. I am a mother of two and an auntie to many, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. And last but not least, we have Diana. Can you please introduce yourself and give us some idea why we're doing this show?
Hi. I apologize for my voice. I'm coming from a cold, and I lost my voice. But my name is Diana Scott, and I'm a behavior clinician of Scott Children and Youth Services. We provide a lot of training to families, youth, and children diagnosed with autism and other related disorders. And this is a great forum to have because this is something that parents and caregivers really need, is the self-care part that is lacking. And we often find that a lot with families due to the stress of having the diagnosis and navigating the different avenues. So this is a really great thing that you're doing here to help families with the big key is self-care.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And who better to ask than the people on the front line? So you guys know exactly what we're dealing with. So kudos to you for coming on and be willing to share your stories. I certainly appreciate that, and so do the organization. So I'm going to ask a series of questions. They all would apply to you. So I would ask one question and run around the four of you. So we can go in the same order. So starting with Robert, how do you balance self-care when you're looking at a person diagnosed with exceptionalities rather? Sorry.
I will say, if you asked me this a year ago, I wouldn't be able to answer you because I was doing a really poor job at balancing that. And it was some people who enlightened us, via the issues that were going on with our family, that sort of helped me understand the self-care fact. I mean, it was some nurses who basically helped me understand it a whole lot better. And now it's, I've taught it to my daughter where, if you feel like you're getting a little stressed, take a step back and go find a spot to relax and just, and just do something that helps you calm down, and how I balance it personally. I mean, it's exactly that. I was not paying attention to how I was feeling. I was more or less always wrapped up in what she was doing. And now it's, now I'm balancing a lot further. Now, whenever I feel like I need to take a break, I step back, I take a break, go for a walk, listen to music, whatever,
How long have you been directly involved in this situation?
This situation? Well, I mean, as a single dad since about 2010.
Okay.
Yeah. And I will say up until last year, the beginning of last year, I was not doing a wonderful job of self-care. And it was the education I got at the beginning of last year from the nurses that helped me really identify it and say, okay, hey, I need to pay more attention to it.
Okay, very good. So next we have Ms. Campbell. So the same question to you. How do you balance self-care when looking after a person diagnosed with exceptionalities?
For me, the most important thing is really having an understanding of the emotions that we're going through, and that we actually have to work through them. When you do receive a diagnosis, you at the time you're not sure how to feel, and most of us feel anxiety, fear, depression, denial, and for me, really, it was coming to terms that I'd have to work through these things in order to be the best support system for my son. So what I do is do things that help enlighten my spirit, keep me uplifted, those talents that you had when you were a child, whatever made you laugh and giggle, those are very important things to help us key through these moments because we're being a total support system for somebody else. So if that's reading a book, taking a walk, you may only have 10 minutes in intervals to do these things. So it's really a matter of being intentional on your time and space. Meditation is a good thing as well. And honestly, just sitting down in peace and prayer. It's what works for me.
Okay, so over time, I would think you sort of gathered more confidence and more experience as you went along.
Absolutely. But you do have to feel those emotions. It's very, very important because they themselves are going through a waterfall of feelings. So being able to actually know that sometimes you're going to be sad, like cry through those moments, and know that going through them will help you build strategies to actually work through when they're having those same exact feelings. So it may take time, but you have to be intentional with the time. 5 minutes turns into 20 real easy. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, Miss Natasha, how do you balance self-care when looking after a person diagnosed with exceptionalities?
I have a couple of points. One is stop and smell the roses. And that is like taking a breath and taking much needed moments. And that like Ms. Campbell said, it will be in intervals. And small moments in time can equal to large gains. Second is balancing your care by remembering yourself and what you like and what makes you happy, and taking in again small intervals of time with things that make you happy, and remembering you are only human and you cannot look after one person if you don't look after yourself. Another person if you don't look after yourself. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. So it comes back to that airplane philosophy, like when the masks come down, before you put on the mask for your child, you got to put it on for yourself first. So you always got to look after yourself before you can look after anyone else. Excellent. So again, we have Diana. And to Diana, how do you balance self-care when looking after a person diagnosed with exceptionalities?
Just to go back to what everybody else had said, taking time for yourself, getting, back to the things that you used to do or you used to enjoy as well. So may that be like listening to music for a little bit in the morning before you get up, making sure you also yourself have a break as well. Because, you are human. We all have emotions. We all get frustrated or upset or, have stress. So it's important that you take time for you because, you can't give if you have nothing to give yourself, So that's really important to take the time that you need to just fill your cup up, go for a walk if possible. Also find some activities that maybe you could also bring your children into so that you guys can enjoy together. May it be like past games from when you were a child, talking with other families and having, parent dates and things like that. That's really important. And keeping a circle of friends around you for support.
Very good. Yeah, to involve the person directly, I guess there's no better way to deal with it than having them involved directly. So it seems that it's working fine for you, and you seem to be doing a great job. So fantastic. The next question is, the first part is really directed more to Robert. It says, let's talk a bit more about the double stigma for single male parents, as well as being a member of society. How have you been able to deal with that, Robert?
You know what? It's an interesting one because when I first started out on this journey, I noticed that stigma of, you know, because normally the woman is the caregiver and is more in tune and stuff like that. And it's, I have to say, I mean, how do I put, I mean, the barrier hasn't been too huge to a point where it's not able to be overcome. I think because of the fact that, with reference to what we've gone through, I've educated myself, and so therefore, you know, a lot of people are like, oh wow, you know, I did not know that, and so they're a little more open to hearing what I have to say, and also to, you know, you talk about the stigma. I mean, yes, there's a lot of stigma, especially as a single parent, a single dad. You know, I have the child and stuff, and it's like, oh wow, that's different. But at the same time, too, I haven't been, you know, sort of chastised. You know, everyone's like, wow, that's amazing, you know, because they see the way she is. And they're like, wow, like, that's amazing job you're doing with her. And I admit it's taken a long time to accept that, because of the fact that really, you know, like, but I mean, I've come to a point where, yeah, okay, I see she's happy, and she's told me over and over again, she's like, you know, you're a great dad. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing to hear. You know, but in terms of, you know, trying to access supports and stuff, I'm lucky. I've had people around me who are in the community, who are in the support community too, who have always, you know, had that thing of just saying, hey, if you need help, let us know, you know. And so I having people within the system has helped, and also to having become a fierce advocate after becoming comfortable with the diagnosis has actually helped too. You know, I mean, some people don't like it, some people do, you know, so, but yeah, I mean, you know, it's broken down some barriers, so that has helped. But at the same time, there is a lot there, you know, still, but slowly but surely, you know, things are changing.
Excellent. So can you elaborate a little bit more on
Sure.
how this stigma has impacted your access to support?
Well, I mean, because, you know, every time you go for support, they're always looking for the 2-parent thing.
Right.
And so, yes, there's a little bit of judgment, like, oh, there's only 1 parent, you know, but when you explain to them everything, they're like, oh, okay, you know, and then, you know, that once they see how everything works and how my daughter is, things start to go away, because they see, oh, okay, like, he's doing a really good job here, you know, whereas at first there is a little judgment, like, oh, like, okay, where's the woman, you know, because normally that's what they deal with, you know, because, and so, yeah, I mean, you know, within the school system and stuff, and how that has happened, yeah, there's been some barrier there, you know, where your voice is not being heard, but it does take a little bit of a step up to sort of say, hey, you know, I'm her father, you know, and I'm going to advocate for her. And I think when I explain to them stuff, and they realize, hey, this guy does know his stuff and does know what he's talking about, they do tend to want to listen. You know?
Yes. So you'd say you're seeing signs of encouragement, like things seem to be progressing in the right direction.
Yeah. Because I mean, I think a lot of people make the assumption that some fathers are not wanting to be involved, but when they see that, you know, in a sense of learning what is going on, but when they see that, hey, there, you know, I am educated on how the system works,
right,
then there's a little more cooperation, you know, per se. So,
okay, very good. Ms. Campbell, can you share what it's like with your son?
I totally agree with Robert. It's always, for me, what was key was becoming that actual advocate for them. And that for me meant being present in all aspects, present in therapy, present in schools, present in teacher meetings, present in meetings that they felt I was not required to be in. Really just being visible and loud. And when I say that, I mean, in essence, only we know what is best for our kids. And this also goes in line with just us having our children in schools in general, that we are the front lines of their education, no matter what type of system that our children are in. So we're going to know the things that are going to help them a certain development. Everything else really is just a part of resourcing. So taking the time to understand how your child learns and the key resources and tools that would assist anybody who's helping your child to develop can only come from the number one source, right? And that's us, because we're their parent. So there is definitely a heavy stigma in regards to my child. He is severely autistic, but he quote unquote does not look autistic. So with that being said, I've had to make extra steps to let them know that just because they don't look or move a certain way does not mean that they still do not require the extra resources that are required. So the advocacy and the demand comes from me. I come inside and tell you what's required, and if it doesn't work, we can look at doing something else. The same would apply when we do therapies for our kids. When it comes to someone like Diana can tell you that. When it comes to clinicians and you doing any type of sessions, it has to be community driven. And that means in regards to anybody that's working with their child like a therapist, me as a parent, we really have to sit down and really collaborate on what it looks like, because avenues of development are going to come not only from those resources, but from home as well. So they have to match. So my mouth is going to be the key to let them know what's needed, and I will take as much advice and resources that's available. And hopefully, if it's not there, we can make the resources.
Okay, so again, are you seeing signs of encouragement? Are you seeing signs of progress?
Absolutely, but that does require on cooperation.
Right.
And as long as those areas are willing to cooperate with what we see works, then absolutely, you can see that result. But it is key as a parent that if we see things that are not, they're like regressive or not working, that we speak up so we can find other things and tools to work.
Exactly. Excellent. Ms. Natasha, how does or how has stigma affected your access to support?
Similar to what I've been hearing, I would say looking like I don't need any assistance. So unseen, there are such things as unseen disabilities, and they do exist within all sorts of cultures. And so we have to remember that it's not your fault, and it's not your child's fault, and give yourselves grace. And it doesn't matter what you look like, but you should open your mouth to get your needs met. And I would keep my mouth closed so I can keep nice. But if you keep nice, you'll never get what you need. So I think like being able to understand that there are variants in the types of people that are out there, and reminding not only yourself but also the person you're caring for that use your words for what you need. And if you're not able to do so, find someone who's able to understand you so you can get what you need.
Okay, so would you say over time things have gotten progressively better?
Yes. And I believe that there are people opening up to the fact that you don't always see the same presentations of an exceptionality, and there are various people with different types of presentation. So once we can be trained to understand that, then we'll all have a wonderful life. And I hope that this space and other spaces like it, we'd be able to speak on, hey, it's not your fault. Hey, I know that it's usually moms, but there are dads too.
exactly.
And hey, some fathers are involved. And so, like, just get that out of your mind so then we can help the children and parents and caregivers that we need to assist. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. And next, Diana, how does this impact, the stigma is impacted in your experience?
Sure. So along of what Natasha was saying regarding the unseen disability, we do take children out in the community, and sometimes, we've gotten the question of, let's say sometimes there's, access to passes and things like that, or like they give discounts for people with special needs and different disorders. And we've gotten it where they've said to us, like, oh, this person doesn't look like they have a disorder. And I'm like, well, what does that look like? Everybody's different. And no one's going to have a label on their shirt to say, oh, I have autism or I have this or that. So just letting people know, like, everybody, because one person has autism and they look or act a certain way, that doesn't mean everybody will act a certain way with the same diagnosis. So it's different all across the board. And, we've had challenges where, we've gotten to use public bathrooms, and because we'll bring the boys with us, and they're young boys, we've had an issue where we've had complaints, and then I had to explain to them, like, obviously, you see, we're supporting the children in the bathroom. They're not disturbing you. They're not doing anything. They're using the bathroom just like you and coming out, and just nothing, but they just have to complain to say, oh, we're bringing like men in the bathroom. Like, these are not men. They're like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, Even another time too, we went to the public library by Square One, and they asked us not to come back. And so, I really gave it to the lady, the librarian at the time, because I said, everybody has a right to be here. We're not disturbing. We're not making so much noise. We were in the children area. Our group was a little bit quiet. Some children do stim. So one was like vocal stimming, but nothing that would disturb the whole room where, oh my gosh, we can't be here. So, when I did tell her that everybody has a right here, and then, she apologized. But we never went back because I just said, this is ridiculous, so it's unfortunate that even this day and age, we still go through challenges out in the community because people just don't understand. Or also too, if a child's having like a meltdown, people will stare even if we ask them not to, or try to kind of intervene and, oh, do this, do that. I'm like, excuse us, like, can you go away? Like, we have it handled. We're professionals. We're dealing with it. And we also go out in the community as well with families, because also too, the stigma of people are looking at us, when we go to the park, they're staring, they're offering like a whole bunch of different suggestions, do this, do that. So it's very stressful on the families because they just want to go and have a good time. And if their child wants to play in the sand or play with sticks, like, who cares? It's not disturbing you. But people always just have something to say that doesn't help the situation at all.
I'm sure it hasn't. So considering the obvious difficulties you would have faced at the beginning, would you say that over time things have progressively gotten better?
No.
No.
As I said, like in this day and age, you still face some of the stigmas and the looks and the comments. That's why I'm saying in this day and age, autism is prevalent. You see it almost everywhere, this autism awareness. So that's something that's good as well. But we still have the challenges out there in the community where people just don't understand. And, they don't look autistic. But what does, someone with autism look like, So we still go through those challenges as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a difficult road, but you give it your best shot. That's
yes, for sure.
Do. So very good, that you've been plugging away. As they say.
Yes.
So back to Robert. What are some of the strategies for managing behavioral support, financial support, etc.?
Yeah, I've been staring at this question for a while because it's an interesting one. I mean, behavior, in the beginning with us, yes. It's funny. I never really looked at it as behavior. I looked at it like, okay, she's doing this because there's a reason. She was nonverbal at the very beginning and stuff. And so I didn't quite understand that that so-called behavior was a signal that, hey, I'm trying to get a message across. Right. And so once I understood that, I always took it as a message across. And ever since she's been young, she's had a communication book. So what I would do is, I would let her go through her meltdown, let her just go through it. And when she calmed down, I personally, I would take her communication book over to her and I would be asking her, how are you feeling? She would tell me. And then I would ask her, not what made her upset, because she didn't quite understand it then. But now I can take her tablet to her and I can ask her, okay, show me on your tablet, what made you upset or what didn't you understand? I mean, now she's more verbal. She can say to me what she doesn't understand. So it's more of a conversation piece with us of oh, okay, you didn't understand that? Do you need a little more help, for me to explain it to you? And she's like, yes. And so we take a little bit more time to help her understand. I mean, I've learned the intricacies of the whole touch, no hugging, that's fine. I never understood that at the beginning, but now I understand it. Now, anytime she wants a hug, it's always when she wants to come to me. And because I've come to understand it, when we go and go give our kids a hug, especially on the spectrum, and they push us away, it's because of the fact that they're just saying, right now, I don't need that sensory. But when they come to you and they say, hey, I want a hug, it means, okay, I need that sensory. That would really help me out, and so, I'm lucky with her. There hasn't been a whole lot of behavioral, except for the meltdowns of just not understanding stuff or being in a loud crowd, which for us, now she's got these wonderful headphones so that we can go out in a crowd and she's not bothered. We went to our first concert a couple of years ago and she absolutely loved it. I was so afraid she was going to be like, oh my God, this is so much, but she loved it. And I was like, this is so amazing. And I mean, I'm lucky. I went into business for myself, so I sort of afford the time to help educate myself on all of this. And I realize a lot of families don't have that chance. And, that's where the partnership with the clinicians and stuff come into play. She had a respite worker to help me understand this too. So, I mean, if anybody's got a respite worker, rely on them because, they're, a lot of them are educated and they understand this well too, and the financial support. I mean, at the very beginning, it was tough. I mean, when she was younger, I was balancing a, full-time job with her going every other day kindergarten, tearing my hair out, but at the same time too, I made a transition from that to something that gives me a little more time with her. So, I mean, you can't always find everything out there in terms of what is in the autism field or disability field in terms of support. It's more or less somebody, coming to you, say, hey, did you hear about this? And it's like, oh yeah. And, I'll go and check that out. And so that's how a lot of it has come, you rely on your friends, and family who say, hey, I heard this, maybe you should check it out, and, because again, it takes a village and yes. It just can't be just solely centered on one person.
That's true. And the thing is, because it's not an exact science, you put your feelers out there and, with support from other people in the public and whatnot, maybe social media, government, etc. All those play a part in, helping the process along. So,
I mean, we're getting better in this country. We're starting to recognize the disability world a little bit more. Could do a little better, but we're getting better to a point where we're starting to realize, hey, there is a disability community that does need a little more help. So, slowly but surely.
Okay. What keeps you resilient and focused on the desired outcomes?
You know what? It is honestly my daughter's enthusiasm. I mean, I'm lucky right from a young age. This has been she's a real determined little, I wouldn't say little girl, big girl now. I mean, but and so it's her determination to, like, a lot of it is trial and error with us, and it's more or less we try something, and if it doesn't work for her, it's like, okay. Like, since she was young, I noticed the whole sound thing. And so we were, for a while, we were not afraid to go outside, but there were certain areas we did avoid. But we didn't actually avoid, because it was all trial and error, constant exposure, constant, contact with whatever, like with foods and stuff. And it's like, hey, let's try this, and so it's been, not force fed. It's more or less, hey, let's give this a shot. And she'll tell me, either back then with her communication book or now verbally, okay, yeah, I don't like that. Like, we don't go to certain movie theaters because she tells me, okay, this is too much. Oh. So it's like, okay, you know what? And I respect that, because it's all conversation in our house to say, hey, I have a voice, let's talk. And we did that today, and I'm proud of her, because, she's really adapted to that.
Awesome. Seems like you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Next, Ms. Campbell, what are some of the strategies for managing behavior, behavioral support, and financial support as well?
I'm right along there with Robert on trial and error is a big thing, because things have to be experienced in order for us to know not only how to deal with it, but how to manage it. A lot of what they're going through, everybody has really a different framework on what their autism or their exceptionality looks like. So we could try many things. We could also take advice from others, but it's really living through the experiences to understand how we can work through the processes, what works and what doesn't. Exposure is a huge thing. That's actually a part of my story specifically. Sound sensory was very difficult for my son, and somebody who comes from the experience of music as a background, it was very not only painful but traumatizing for him hearing certain sounds. So initially, I really just I regressed immediately, thinking that it was painful for him. And it took me a couple years to get an understanding that he needed exposure. And it was a requirement for him to be able not only hear it, but understand different strategies that would help him work through it, whether it was using headphones or whether it is him using the moment to actually take it in and figure out what would happen when he would work through it. I also use a strategy of going downtown. There is many different sounds. And some things will work and some things will not. But either way, the exposure will come at some point in life, and we have to learn how to work through them. So really diving in on that trial and error is a huge factor. Also, that community piece is a huge fragment, because it's not just us. Because they're around us the most, they'll be able to not only work through those things, but our behaviors and how we respond will help them go through them as well. So if nobody else is working with you on that community level, the responses are going to be different. And I think that also goes along with the piece that Diana was saying when we're in public sectors, because if I am actually used as a tool to help him calm down, because I'm the nurturer and I'm able to nurture him and understand that it's a time to break down. If he needs to break down, if he needs to calm down, I can assist him with that. But sometimes there are people around, and their own reactions and behaviors will either trigger it even further or turn it into some type of meltdown. So really it's about having going into those spaces with the concept and delivering how it works with those who work in your community with your child. On the financial level, it's just downright hard. There are opportunities that the government helps to what they consider support, and we are very appreciative of it. But it definitely is not enough. I think in the last 7 years, we are in a clear understanding how difficult it is. We did see an uprise in autistic parents a couple of years back actually stand up and get down to areas of parliament to, really advocate for this these programs to continue, even though they have stopped and they have altered. I have learned to become that resource, and I build them. So whatever's needed, I went through the process of doing cognitive behavioral therapy, so I can understand certain things about not only their behaviors but mine as well, because really that is a key thing. We are emotional, we are their parents, and we want the best for them, and caregivers do as well. And we take on these emotions, so we really, that it goes back to that self-care piece of really being able to center ourselves in good spaces, because they read how we're feeling. And a lot of the times when they're dealing with their own triggers, those behaviors are the first things that will help them, or it will make it worse. So really going in with that advocacy and support and positive light will help going through any of the behaviors that we're going through. No, it's not going to be easier because money's not there. So we really have to build these communities to find the money. And we will work together in forums just like this to not only build the advocacy, but the acceptance. I don't say awareness anymore because it needs to be accepted that it's a part of our society now. And we're going to work through those behaviors as a whole. When I see somebody on the road who's going through these things, I'm not necessarily giving advice, but I'm watching the people around, because that will determine if I have to make them push back a little more so they can have space, or if they need some type of attention. That's how I deal with it.
Oh, very good. Would you say that the public has been more, I guess, for want of a better word, accepting to him being out in the public? Do you get stares and, nasty looks and whatnot, or has it become easier for you or him?
I don't think it's become easier. I think I've just determined that I don't care.
Good attitude.
I have to move in this space. And I deliver that to any parent that I coach or work with. It's not going to get easier. Don't expect it to. The only thing that's happened is that a lot of parents, people out in public have seen similarities in somebody that's within their circle that's had some type of exceptionality that they weren't necessarily looking at, that they can now recognize more in the streets. They can recognize more when they're traveling and more in the places that they work and go to school. So it's more visible. It really just matters how we use the labels that are there to determine that you know and I know, and we're going to work through it together.
Very good. And this kind of leads into the next question, which is what keeps you resilient and focused on the desired outcomes?
Is that question for me? Say that
Yes.
again.
What keeps you resilient and focused on the desired outcomes?
That his development is, it's going to happen. I'm not taking no for an answer on anything. And I will find the tools, and he will be resilient as long as I am resilient. As long as I continue to burn the fire in the community that's around him, he will be able to succeed in any way, shape, or form that comes. And that works for all of my kids, because that's just a requirement. It's the environment, the society that we're in right now. They, as much as they are willing to say they're accepting, it's easy to put on a smile. But the reality is that development and that resiliency is coming from me, because I know that he could do his best. When they told me that he was going to be nonverbal and he wasn't going to be able to excel past the level of grade 4, I said, thank you, but I'm not accepting that. And I taught him, and I made sure that he learned the requirements, the phonics, that he learned how to do things so that he can start propelling in his own right. I'm going to continue to advocate in the things that he's excited about, because those are the things that are going to make sure that he can excel. Resiliency is because I have to.
That's the spirit. I like your spirit. It's very encouraging and seems to get the job done. So really, very good.
Thank you.
Next, we have Miss Natasha. So what are some of the strategies for managing behavior, behavioral support, financial support?
So my first comment is thank you both, Robert and Ms. Campbell, for your diligence. I love it. Partnerships And I say this community and connection, because if you don't have people to bounce similar ideas off of, you will think you are not doing your due diligence. Putting yourself out there and seek or build your own community and connection. So if it's regarding monies, maybe if you put yourself out there and ask, maybe you'll get an answer that you can use. And if not, you will get an answer that, okay, I got to keep going. And I think also, if you have to build what you need, like what Ms. Campbell said, then that's what we got to do. We got to build what we need. I know it's a difficult task, but with help, it can be done.
Very good. What keeps you resilient and focused on the desired outcomes?
All right. So, endless hope, grace, being grace-filled, and for yourself as well as a caregiver or as a parent, emotional well-being, and being able to teach that to your caregiver, or the caregiver teaching that to your the person you're caring for. Smiles, small steps, because small steps, no matter how small, can create large waves. And I believe also that pilot light always being on and never letting it out, because that's where the fire for you and the person you're supporting comes from. So that's it.
Yeah. Well, it seems like your plan is working well, so keep at it, and kudos to you for that. Next, Diana, what are some of the strategies for managing behavior, behavioral support, and financial support?
Sure. Being a service provider, that's what we specialize in, is behavior strategies. We implement behavior management plans, and we implement them as well. So we provide families based on the behaviors. Mind you, every behavior is different for everybody. So not everything we do is going to work for Johnny, Samantha, Tim. So we always have to do something that we call like a functional behavioral analysis. So finding out what is the cause of the behavior, because like Robert was saying, each behavior means something. So it's our job to find out, like, what is it? Is it maybe the work could be too hard, or some children who have communication difficulties, sometimes it's challenging more for them because they can't tell us what's wrong. So we have to kind of play like a game. Is it your foot? Is it your hand? Are you sick? So we kind of have to like read and kind of look at them and kind of observe and see, like, okay, maybe they're off today because maybe they may not be feeling too well, and just try to use like protocol or PECs or something to help them communicate. That is important as well. So we're trying to teach them ways that they can communicate without getting into that negative behavior, because also that impacts their learning, impacts social skills, socializing with others. If they're going to hit somebody or pull somebody's hair, people may not want to be around them. Their peers may not want to be around them. So instead of doing that, like if you want to play, you can tap your friend on the shoulder, use your protocol and give them like the sentence structure or the pack play. So those are some examples that we use as well. And one key thing I always tell families as a service provider, I'm sorry, my voice. I always say that we need you just as much as you need us, because we have to work together. And that's one line that I always go with families, because I can only do so much myself. They're with us for a limited amount of time. We have to be a team. And, when families kind of see that, you'll see the children flourish. You'll see the things that we've taught them. They can pick up a little bit faster because we're all working together, the schools, people in the community, the families, us as service providers. And once they see like everybody's on board, then you'll see things kind of pick up and move along a little bit quicker, because we're all focusing on like one thing, and we're all on the same page, which is important, because if you're doing A, I'm doing B, somebody else is doing C, it's just not getting the right way across. And then, they get confused, and then sometimes more behaviors come out because of that, because, hey, over here I do this, over here I do that, over here. So it's just a little bit confusing. So it's really important. Even the children that I work with, I always say, let's go to the schools. If they're having challenges in the community, let's go out in the community and do some observations, so we can build a plan that can help them across the different environments that they will be in, because that's the key. And the whole goal of, therapy, the ABA therapy, and the life skills and social skills we teach them is for them to implement it as best as they can. I don't have a crystal ball. Sometimes families will say to me, well, if they do this, is my child going to be fixed? And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. We're helping them to learn the skills, and that can help them to be somewhat independent as best they can. Like, I don't know how they're going to be. One example is one client that I have that we were working with. He was on the protocol, and it was tough for the families to, get past that. But we worked hard. We worked together. We had to come as a team, because I was like, hey, if I'm teaching him this, you guys also have to work on it at home when I'm not here. And, yes, there was tears involved. Mom's crying, child's crying. Me and dad are like, you're doing it. You can do it, and we have to push and kind of get past those barriers and provide them the stepping stones, so they can have the endless possibilities, like Natasha was saying, and Miss Campbell was saying, and Robert saying. And if you see him today, he's not using protocol. He's talking like you and I. He can have full conversations. He even did a speech in school. So it's really amazing. And sometimes the parents are like, Diana, like, did you know this was going to happen? I say, no, I don't. But, as much as work as we're doing, the child also has to kind of give us something as well, so we can kind of reinforce that behavior and, kind of push and work hard together. And once we did that as a team, he flourished, and now he's even reading ahead of his peers. And it's really, really good to see.
Wow, that's fantastic. With the group that you're involved with, would you say there are some areas that are easier to deal with and some that are more difficult to deal with?
As I said, everybody's different. So for that answer, no, because, some children communication's easier, some children's social skills is harder, life skills. So it's, as I said, I always tell parents, just like we all learn differently. Some people learn by doing, some people learn by seeing, hearing. So I always lead with that we're all different. Some people are better at reading, some people are good at math. So it's the same thing that applies when we're looking at working with children. And sometimes I know they're so focused on the diagnosis, but I have to say, like, okay, we know autism, we know what some of the markers are. Let's just focus on your child. What does he or she like to do? A lot of times, sometimes parents don't even know their child is silly. They just, I can't deal with it, or it's too much. But, we kind of find ways, and hey, guess what? He likes to laugh. He's doing this because that's just his personality. And sometimes I've gotten the question, is this autism, or is this just their personality? And like, a lot of times that's just who they are. Some of them are stubborn, just like us, think about the time when you were a kid and, you didn't listen to your parents. Sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with the diagnosis. It's just them. But because the diagnosis is here, I mean, as I'm not a parent to a child with autism, but we work with them and we see this, that I know they focus so much on the autism because, like Ms. Campbell was saying, when you get that diagnosis, there's so much that comes with it. And Robert, I'm sure you've gone through that, researching online, trying to figure out what is this going to look like for my child. But, as they age and they grow, sometimes too, the things we teach them, other things will just kind of come into play, and other parts of the brain will start opening up. And that's amazing to see. And sometimes I'm like, hey, how did you know to do this? And one client said, I don't know, I'm just smart, I just know it. I said, all right. So it's really good.
Yeah, well, obviously there's no one size fits all. There's no one generic solution for this problem.
Right.
It depends on, you got to take it situation by situation.
Yes.
So I understand what you're saying, and it certainly makes a lot of sense.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So what keeps you resilient and focused on the desired outcomes?
Just, seeing that children do improve. Sometimes it may take longer. as Ms. Campbell was saying, some things children can learn in a couple of months, some things it might take a year, but I always say, look at the bigger goal. If they improved even just a little bit, that's better than how they were doing 2 weeks ago. So we kind of have to look at the small things. And like Ms. Natasha was saying, like, it's the little steps that will get us to the bigger steps later on as well, right? So just keeping that in mind and just staying focused and positive. And yes, sometimes it's hard. It's not easy. But, we'll make it. Then we'll figure it out together as long as we're here and we work as a team.
Sounds good. Sounds excellent. So back to Robert. Thank you, Diana. Any last thoughts on advocacy?
Wow. Okay. You really open up a big door there. Yes. I mean, advocacy in many different ways. Because, I mean, like what Diana was just talking about with the kids, meeting certain milestones and stuff like that. I think, especially when you get those early days diagnosis and stuff, you like, I know I, as a parent, I got trapped in the trap of, you go out to the park and stuff, you see what other kids are doing and you see your child and you want them to do it so bad. And you know what, I had to advocate myself to, like, okay, hold on here. You know what, you need to focus on what your kid can do right now. Don't worry about what they can do. And I love my daughter because she's become this advocate for that too, where she's like, you know what, yes, she can't do it right now, but she's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And she's right, because eventually she does do it, and I can't tell you how many times I've said to her, you know what, you were right. And she'll see me stuck on something and she's like, don't worry about it, come back. And I'm like, okay, and as she's gotten older, she's become this advocate for her. And I have to say, I mean, that's the thing, you when you're advocating for them when they're younger, they see that. And as they get older, they start to see that, like advocacy, that's a big open door. And with school and everything, you know what, for us, it's been a little different than what most families deal with, because, I've had teachers who have come to me and said, hey, how do you do things at home? And when I mentioned it's all a conversation piece, they're like, oh, interesting, because not too many people have that. And so when I've modeled for the teachers and stuff, and I love it because of the fact we become this big partner, and they start modeling it, and you know what, she becomes so much happier, because here somebody is not telling her what to do. They're asking her, like, do you want to try this? And if she doesn't want to try it at that moment, they're like, okay, you know what, then we'll come back later and see if you want to try it again. And she's like, okay, so, I mean, as a parent, I mean, that's what I was, I mean, the advocacy, I've been involved in it for a while. Like, everyone's talking about the autism and the autism program in this province. And so I've been involved in a group for a long time, even before my daughter had autism. And I was like, and she has seen that, and she's become a bit of an advocate herself. So, I mean, eventually, our kids grow older and they start to pick up on that. And so it's great, because sometimes they take some of that burden from you of having to always be that advocate. And eventually they're like, hey, you know what? No, I don't want to do this right now, but I can try it later, and it's a very interesting concept. And at the same time too, I mean, talking to parents, I mean, you talk about whether, with school or whether with service providers. I mean, service providers, I know a few, I mean, do great with the partnership aspect. And with school, I mean, you know what, parents sort of need to sort of push that a little, because, I mean, let's face it, the support workers are so busy dealing with a million different things. Right. And you need to sort of introduce yourself and basically say, hey, you know what, I want to work in partnership with you. And some will be open to it, and they'll take some time for it. We've been lucky. We've had a few where they're like, hey, you know what, this is what happened at school, and they would come back to me and ask me, what do you normally do at home? And as she's gotten older, it's more or less, I've said to them, okay, have a conversation with her about it, ask her about it, don't just tell her about it. And they come back to me like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, and I sort of say to her, try it with the staff too. They may enjoy that as well. So I mean, I'm not only advocate for my daughter, but I admit I'm trying to advocate for having a bit of a attitude change within the school system of, hey, let's talk to each other rather than just telling each other what to do, because when you do that, people tend to be a lot more receptive. I mean, I don't do that here with my daughter. I advocate conversation with us, and it makes things run so much smoother. I have to say, because of that, the meltdowns have gone way down because her voice is now being heard. That's just the thing. When everyone's voice is being heard, especially in advocacy, everyone's like, okay, we can get along here. We can hear each other out, and maybe we can figure some stuff out because, that's my little bit.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much, Robert. So basically, the other thing too is our organization will be reaching out to all these parents, professionals, and experts and see what we can do, especially for male parents who have autistic kids. So that's something we're geared to move forward and help as much people as we can in this regard. Before proceeding, I just want to offer some more important information of our group. There are no limitations to gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups. All walks of life can participate in any of our shows. If you want to be a guest on any of our shows or willing to be part of our organization and help us directly or indirectly, please reach out to us. We would love to work with individuals, professionals, experts, community organizations, associations, corporations, government officials, and businesses. Our phone number is 226-289-8784. An email address is info@voiceofmen360.org. Our website is www.voiceofmen360.org. You can find us on all social media, Facebook page. Join our group so you can see our daily activities, and please invite your friends as well. Other social media platforms are Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Voice of Men 360. So next we move to is Natasha next? Sorry, I couldn't remember who's next. Sorry, Ms. Campbell. So give us your final thoughts on advocacy.
Okay, so are you ready?
As I'll ever be.
Listen, I started on this journey being very timid and shy, looking for the support that I thought I needed. And I started initially working not only with my own child, but working with other kids to see if I can support them. But that fell apart very easily because I quickly understood that community piece is everything. What's happening in the schools and whatever's happening with any type of therapy that is in support of our kids is so vital on the attitudes and the behaviors that are approaching who's going to be helping the development of our kids. My advocacy is loud because it has to be. That communication piece is a requirement for there to be any type of change in the communities, as well as for us to see collective developmental growth in our kids. We're looking for independence because they need that independence. They're only going to learn it through us actually stepping into their shoes and having a clear understanding of what their needs are. So let's start putting as parents, I really am speaking to parents. I'm delivering this message with humility, but I need you to hear it. Step inside of your children's shoes. Once you do that, you will get a clear understanding of what's needed when you are not present. It's easy to have conversations with teachers, administrators, clinicians, just like Diana, and us talk about what's needed. It's where the action comes and takes place that when we're going to need the opportunity for the advocacy to actually take hold. Sorry, excuse me. I have my son here.
Okay.
But one of the things is that this advocacy, when you speak to teachers that are going to be working alongside with them, that you discuss how things are working. If they are not working, shift and do something else, because that's going to build the tools for them to be able to find work when they get older. Those are the tools that are going to assist them to knowing what different risks look like. A lot of them are genuinely happy individuals. My son is happy all the time. He wakes up happy and he goes to sleep happy. I'm not always that happy. But I tell you, seeing his excitement on something that he's unsure about, he wakes up with that light in hopes that he can learn something and do something new every day. If I don't step into those shoes to have that same energy, it's going to be very difficult for even whatever you're trying to advocate for to take place. Please understand that you have to use your voice when it comes to your kids, especially if they don't have it. They will develop one later, but watching how you move with what works for them is key. It's so key for them being able to move past their milestones, no matter how long it takes. You have to be present. Please talk to your teachers, your administrators, your principals. What's happening in the classroom? Ask for reports, daily reports. What did they do today? What type of behaviors occurred? If there were incidents, require an incident report. If you didn't get one, go back for it. If you think things aren't working and you see your child being very digressive, or you see some type of behaviors starting to take hold, reach out to those superintendents, reach out to the trustees to look for support and the things that they need. All these things do take time and resources are available, but you have to be it first. We're not always sure. I was not always sure. I also fought it. You need to have meetings, your IEPs in school. That determines what's going to happen when you're trying to teach them. Sitting alongside your behavioral clinicians like Diana is so vital. I'm sure she could tell you how many parents were absent and how many were right there next to her, in her ear, on her head, next to her, saying, look, this is working at home and this is not working. What can I do? It is such a collaborative effort. If they see you, they will respond. Teachers and teacher assistants are busy and tired and lack the resources. If they see you stepping up to the plate, they will meet you. They will meet you.
Yeah.
That's what they were there for in the first place. And if they're not meeting you, then maybe you should reconsider that particular classroom or that school. This really is how it works. Show up so that they can show up with you.
Okay.
That's where
Yep. Thank you very much. That was very well put. Miss Natasha, what's your final thought on advocacy?
Man, it was already all said. Wow. The collaboration piece is key. The communicating to get what's needed and communicating it with the knowledge of the person you're supporting. Knowing your child, confidence within your child. So again, knowing the person that you're supporting is a key piece. And speaking kindly. We don't always have to yell and scream. We don't always have to be quiet, but we should have our balance to how we get our words and our needs met. And being open and confident, knowing that your child is going to get what they need because you're there and you're building the supports needed. And I'll leave it there.
Excellent. Thank you, Miss Natasha. So, Diana, for you, what are your final thoughts on advocacy?
That's really important because, your child doesn't have a voice. And, they're children, regardless if they're nonverbal. That's not what I'm talking about, but because they're children, so they need you to step up for them and advocate on their behalf. And some parents are shy. Some parents, are nervous, don't know what to say. And, I go in and assist them and advocate on their behalf as well. Like I go to schools and meet with teachers. I do school observations, and even I always push for them to go out in the community, sign up for community programs, and we'll help support them along the way, whether that's us, being in the bleachers and running down if there's a challenge and they need some assistance on the field, helping them to participate in programs, because life is just not sitting at a desk doing work. The world is out there, so they have to experience it, and they're going to be in the world, if they get a job later, or have to live with other people, to shared space. So there's lots of different things where to the future you're going to have to think about as well. And so advocating and pushing forward for the needs of your child is really, really important and key for their whole development and everything that they need.
Okay, very well put. Thank you so much, Diana. Now, just a general question for all of you. How would, in terms of, like, let's say, for example, social media, starting with Robert, please share your social media contacts or how we can stay connected with you.
You know what? My social media, I have Instagram, and basically it's Robert Boileau, Boileau, 80. Basically, that's my Instagram, and I have a Facebook that's under basically my name, basically, and I got a Twitter. It's JR Fan. I think it's JR Fan 1980. I can't remember now. I'll be honest. That's the one I don't remember that well, but yeah.
All right. Ms. Campbell, how people get a hold of you?
Okay. You can find us on Instagram at TLCHUB. That's TLC Hub. You could also find us a little bit on Facebook at TLC Hub.
Okay.
We'll be coming in the next couple months with the YouTube channel, but biggest source there. And you could also just hit us up on good old-fashioned telephone, 437-236-9932.
Excellent. Well, best of luck with your upcoming YouTube channel. Natasha, let's hear how we can get a hold of you.
I have at Natasha Connects, and I also have a YouTube channel, Create Don't Hate.
Okay. And Diana?
We do have a page on Facebook. It's the letters SCYS and the number 1. That's our Facebook page. And then on Instagram, Scott, so SCOTT, and the letters CYS. So C as in cat, Y as in yo-yo, S as in Sam. So Scott CYS on Instagram.
Okay. Well, it's been fantastic having shared this session with you guys. Now, amongst yourselves, would you like to ask the other person or anybody within the panel any particular question? Okay, well, I guess we shall move forward. And it's been a pleasure having you all here with us. It's certainly been a meaningful and absorbing session, definitely inspiring and encouraging. It's clear that our guests are knowledgeable, caring, and willing to go the extra mile. So again, thank you so much. I can't thank you all enough for everything you've put forward and shared here with us today. Thank you all again.
Thank you for having us.
You're more than welcome. This has been special video presentation on autism. We would like to thank all the supporters and everyone who tuned into our program this evening. Again, thank you all so much. Thank you very much.
Okay.